back with part 4, more technical issues. Yeah, and Thomas then decided to give me the bike. Well, he offered me, geez, like, do you want the bicycle? You can have all the gear, it's all there, everything you need. Just cycle it back from Marrakesh to Copenhagen. Get the bike back to me and have yourself an adventure. And I thought about it for a day or two. I was like, am I able to do that? And then I just said, fuck it, I'm going to do that. And the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Yeah, so said goodbye to Thomas. He flew back to his homeland of Denmark, and I was left with Kurt, and we hung out for a few days, and then he went on his way to another city. I think Casablanca, or no, he went to Agadir, south coast of Morocco. And then I was left in Marrakesh with the bicycle and everything. And I spent about 6 or 7 days trying to prepare myself mentally. It was like, I'm getting on that bike and cycling more than 5,000 kilometers now. How am I going to do this? And yeah, so eventually it was a mission getting the bicycle out of the hostel, actually, because it was all the way up, 3 flights of stairs in a safe place. A lot of the buildings in Marrakesh and stuff are called riads, and there's a lot of staircases in them. This hostel happened to be a riad, and so Kurt helped me bring the bicycle with all, 50 kilos worth of stuff, including the bike, down the stairs, and he went on his way. And I set off, and I started cycling out of Marrakesh. And I remember it was nice and flat with no wind, and I think on the first day I did about 70 kilometers. I just wanted to, I had no plan. I had Google Maps on my phone, I had water and snacks, and I could stop anywhere, and pick up cheap food and water and stuff on the side of the road in Morocco. It's very common to have little coffee vans and stuff like that if you need a quick espresso or anything. But yeah, my first day I did 70 kilometers. I was very happy with myself. I can't remember where I slept the first night, actually. Oh yeah, it was out in basically the desert. I was heading from Marrakesh towards the coast, so I was going west from the middle of Morocco out towards the coast. It's not all flat. There's a lot of hills, but yeah. And my first night I slept, it was like a desert road basically, there was a bridge over a river, but the river bed was completely dried up because of the time of year, and so I'll be safe enough under this bridge. I won't even have to put up the tent. I can just use the sleeping mat and the sleeping bag and cook myself some noodles and a cup of tea and go to sleep and then get up in the morning. And what I didn't know was there was packs of wild dogs who come out at night in Morocco, both in the cities and out in the farmland areas and stuff. Yeah, and they use the dried riverbeds. They're sort of natural territorial boundaries that the dogs use. One pack of dogs will have the space between 2 rivers. And then another pack of dogs will be barking at them from the bank of the other river. The next patch before the following bridge or before the following river bed, that'll be their patch. And so you've got these gangs of dogs. And then I was like in one of their spots and they barked at me all night. I did manage to sleep and stuff, and I wasn't too threatened. I had a big stick, and but they weren't happy with me being on their little thoroughfare. But woke up really cold the next morning and just got at dawn. That's one of the best things about sleeping outdoors is first light wakes you up. It's pitch black at night. And the sun rising wakes you up, which I believe is the way it should be. I spent all my life really, in bedrooms, with the curtains closed and an alarm to wake me up or something else to wake me up, and not the sun itself. So that's something. If you're in sort of a recovery mode, or you want to enhance your life some way and you have the opportunity, try and sleep outside. Give it a go. If you have a garden or a rooftop of your apartment building or anything like that, just get a sleeping mat. It doesn't have to be an expensive inflatable one or anything, and a sleeping bag. And make sure you're going to be safe, obviously, and just let the sun wake you up, and do that as much as possible. Sit there for 20 minutes looking at the sunrise, and the rest every day that you do that, those days, it just sets you up really nicely, and it's a really good habit to get into. So that's what I started doing then, by default, because of the lifestyle, and hopped on the bicycle that second morning and continued off down a lovely straight, pretty flat Moroccan desert road. I remember I did 14 or 15 kilometers just after having a few sips of water. I eventually found a cafe and sat in there charging up my phone and speaking broken English with the locals, drinking a few coffees, and then was getting back on the bike at sort of like a petrol station yard, and this English couple started talking to me, and they're like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh yeah." Speaking English. They were obviously tourists with a rented car or whatever, and they're like, "Fair play to you now for doing that. I'd love to go on an adventure like that. Or we're doing it the easy way in the car, But I'd say you just see more and experience more and everything on the bike." And I was like, yeah, wow. It was all I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, literally 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, I was deteriorating badly in a box room, a few thousand miles away. With this was not I didn't have this in my mind whatsoever, and now here I am cycling across Morocco and being affirmed and verified that what I'm doing is great and fair play to you, and we'd love to be doing that as well. And just like, I won't say it was a dream come true, because I hadn't dreamed of doing anything like that, but it was just, yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's like, if you have that little shred of sanity, hold on to it through psychosis, through hospital stays, through being medicated, through prison time, whatever it is. Hang on to it, and you don't know where you can pop out if you persevere and get sober if possible. Just rely on your own sanity, your own clarity, your perception. You know what I mean? You don't need drugs. Drugs only take that away from you in various ways. Alcohol, drugs, they might feel like they give you more clarity, but they're just taking away your clarity. The clarity of perception, pristine cognition. You can never have that on any sort of drug. I don't care what anyone says. Microdosing mushrooms and all this kind of stuff. That's all rubbish. In my opinion. If you're under the influence of anything, you have less clarity. You might feel better. You might feel a bit high or anything like that, but then you take that away, and then you're going, all you have then is your clarity to get back to, or else an ever snowballing effect of more and more drugs and different drugs, and that's where that ends up every time. So that's it. So yeah, cycling through Morocco. The next night I slept at like a stone bus shelter, like a concrete small little bus stand at the side of the road. I had cycled for too long, it had gotten dark, I didn't plan about where I was going to sleep, anything. slowly getting used to cycling with all that weight. Had to come across a few sort of slow inclines and being like, I didn't put down 70 kilometers the second day. I tell you, it was maybe 50. And then that night, the dogs came out again, but they were more in the distance. So I was like a little bit more tuned into where the dogs might be and where they might not be. You know, you just like your survival sense and your awareness, your clarity starts to click into gear when you're out dealing with nature head on. You know, you don't have a roof over your head, you don't know where you are, you don't know the country. There are dangerous animals, there might be scorpions or spiders or dogs or jackals, whatever is out there, you know, even dangerous people. So you have to, you know, it's all cool, oh cool, look at the bike packer and everything during the day, but when it gets dark, you've got to be safe and you've got to have everything you need all the time. You can't risk getting injured or getting into any sort of serious complications. So it's like survival mode, but you're embracing survival mode. Human beings have a survival mode for a reason, and it's not just to run away from predators. It's to manage all sorts of things. It's clarity about the environment. You know, the term survival mode and everything, that's been hijacked and falsified in today's society. You know, if you're in survival mode but you work a 9 to 5 in an office, it's like, why are you in survival mode? Because if I don't get up and go to work and then I don't get money and then I can't pay the bills or get food or anything like that, it's like, that's survival mode, but it's hijacked because there are no actual real threats. There's no natural threats. Like, you're waking up in a comfy bed in a locked house where nobody can get at you, and you're going to get into a nice safe little car or on a bus or walk to your job into a place where nobody or animals or nothing can get at you. There's no threats. You know, you might fall down the stairs or staple your fucking tie to a desk or something, but you know, you don't have to worry about food because you can go to the lunchroom or down to the shop and the food is all there prepared. You don't have to worry about where that's coming from or water or anything. You know, the survival mode is hijacked by the conveniences all around you. Like, you think you can't afford your Netflix subscription this month or your gym membership or your car payment, you know, and that's your stress, your survival fight or flight stress system. Everything gets activated over that. You know, it's not real. It's been hijacked by design, by the way. You know, you think we're conditioned to believe that we can't live without these things, and so yeah, that's how stress makes money. You know, if you get stressed for long enough, you end up on tablets, etc., etc. Here we see we're going full circle with all that there now, if you get me. So, being out there, cycling and surviving, knowing you just have to keep going and stay safe and take little risks. You know, it was risky for me sleeping in that stone bus shelter. There was, you know, with no real protection. Do you know what I mean? I had my passport and my wallet and an €2,000 bicycle and expensive, well, you know, other bits and pieces that weren't too expensive, I suppose. But, you know, if I was sleeping and someone wanted to come in the middle of the night and take it all I would have had was like a stick or something to try and fight my ground, you know. Or an animal came with rabies and fuck me up, you know. It's like all that was very real, but I just did my best because there was nowhere to put a tent. It was all huge big farms with rocks, stone walls surrounded by huge big rocky sandy areas surrounded by stone walls, and you know, you couldn't put a tent on it, so I just had to find somewhere that was flat basically and sleep. But yeah, so I got better at that as time went on. Yeah, I eventually made it to the coast of Morocco. I'm fast forwarding about a week, or you know, and it got super difficult. After Marrakesh, you start going up some hills, and there's some big hills, and that was really difficult. My output of like 50, 60 kilometers a day was going down to 20 and 30, and I was realizing how unfit I was. So yeah, I think I rested up in a hotel for a few days at one point, a little town called, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was really nice, super cheap. Really nice people, super cheap, or affordable I should say. And then continued on my way out towards the coast until I reached Essaouira. But that period of after the hills, getting to Essaouira, it's big, undulating, long hills, and the wind was coming directly off the Atlantic at, 18, 20, sometimes 30 meters per second, taking sand with it. So I was trying to cycle against that in sandstorms a lot of the time, trying to get towards the coast. And it was just, I started to hate the wind. I mean, like, I would get up a hill and I would see there was like a long downhill of maybe 800 meters of a steep downhill, and the wind was so strong that I couldn't freewheel down a hill. The wind was blowing me to a stop. So I had to pedal against the wind going downhill many times, and that is the most frustrating thing. And I started to hate the wind. I always hated the wind, being where I'm from. The wind would, it would mess up many things, and make life very difficult, more so than the rain even. But yeah, it just brought up, and then I remembered my promise to myself back when I made it to Portugal. It was like, dig deep. All this frustration and rage, and I hate the wind. Like, how can you hate the wind? What's the point in hating the wind? You're just, this is something that's inside you, this rage, these thoughts of hatred and everything, and just keep going, push through it, and eventually just you'll get to where you're supposed to be. And I mean, trying to get out to the coast of Morocco, I got beaten by the wind so many times. I ended up getting absolutely soaked. One night I slept out, I didn't think it was going to rain, and it rained all night, and I woke up freezing, everything wet. And but I just kept going. I dried out my stuff in the sun the next morning while I was drinking tea with some locals in some random village. It was pretty nice. I was like, wow, I got through that. I didn't get hypothermia, and I'm good to go. And that day then I made it to the coast after that. And got a more cheap accommodation, found somewhere to leave the bike. Got a bus down south from there to Agadir to meet Kurt. Spent a few days with him. He went off to another city. I got the bus back and collected the bicycle and kept going north, up along the west coast of Morocco, back towards Tangier and Spain ultimately. But and the wind did not let up. In the morning it's okay, up until maybe 1 or 2 p.m, and then between 2 p.m. and 6 it's just windy. It's either coming directly off the coast, threatening to blow you onto the road, or it's in your face. And yeah, it was difficult. But I made it. Anyway, I'm not going to go through it day by day, but yeah, made it to Casablanca on the bicycle, which is where Kurt had an apartment, so I had some free accommodation there. I ended up staying there for 2 weeks, I think. That was when Ramadan had started in Morocco. And so that was interesting. A lot of stuff was closed. And the fire started just like magic. The magic of technology. Yep, so I went from Casablanca all the way back to Tangier, all the way along the coast. And and that was my Morocco chapter done. It was 3 months in total. I arrived there on New Year's Eve of 2024, and it was sort of towards the end of February. So yeah, there's a lot of cyclists and stuff like that who would make better time than me, but like I was saying, I wasn't fit. The wind was not in my favour. I was finding, a nice little place here and there and staying there for a few days. I wasn't in it. I had this goal of making it to Copenhagen. That was the thing that was keeping me going. If I have to make it all the way across Morocco, Spain, France, Belgium, Holland, a good portion of Germany. I have to do all of that. So I stopped. I just had that as my goal, and I was pushing myself as much as I could. Having good days and bad days mentally, but mostly it was just the frustration of being unfit. That was it, but I was pushing through it and keeping going. If the frustration with the wind and stuff got too much, I would just stop and push the bicycle. And if you know anything about bike packing or cycling from place to place, if the wind brings you to a halt and you have to get off the bike and push it, it's thoroughly frustrating, but I dealt with it and just kept going and didn't give up. So a lot of the time, I had music on, headphones, and listened to music or podcasts or whatever, and then cars whizzing by me, and there's all these things going on, and it was like a lot of the time having conversations in my own head, with myself, with other people, in a sort of a psychotic way, and a lot of negativity and cursing, and as I was going through those rough patches, but yeah, I was burning off the karma. I was still getting out of that black hole that I had done most, initially. When you get the initial painful part out of the way and you get onto that path, you just got to stay on the path. Or if you're forging a new path for yourself, you just got to keep going. You got to keep swinging that machete into the jungle and just keep going, and things get better, So, okay. I don't expect to get many listens on these videos. I have like 24 subscribers. I want to get 50 subscribers, so I can live stream. That's the protocol for YouTube. You have to have 50 subscribers. So if you're listening, please subscribe. Possibly share with people you think are interested, so I can get up to 50 subscribers. I'm not the guy who's going to keep asking for subscribers and stuff. I just want to get to that live streaming level, and hopefully just have nice conversations with people on live chat, answer questions and stuff, so I don't have to go on big long rambling sessions like this. Although I enjoy it, I hope you get something out of it listening, but I'd rather more to be able to hone in on specifics and give my thoughts on that. So as you can see, the fire is going now. I've got dinner there in the pot, Nepalese dinner. I've got a couple of boiled eggs over there. The light isn't good enough to show you anything else, but so I'm going to get stuck into all of that now. Thanks for listening if you made it this far. Sorry for the technical issues in between these videos. I might continue where I left off, but I'd rather get some feedback on what I've spoken about so far and see what kind of directions I can go in. I personally don't need to relive my whole bike packing adventure. If you want to see bike packing, you can just go on YouTube and watch people who use GoPros and professionally edit and like really see the glamorous side of bike packing, you know. That's not my theme at the moment. My theme is recovering from psychosis, and the bike packing was just a fundamental part in my journey with that. This is being recorded now. I think, what date is it? Maybe the 23rd of February, something like that. So it was, yeah, it was around this time a year ago. I was maybe 1 or 2 weeks into cycling at this point, still in Morocco a year ago, and now I'm on the other side of the world, on a very small budget. You know, my budget hasn't changed. My very generous family helped me with literally just a couple of €100 a week, and that's been enough to see me through multiple countries. And you know, my thing is I'm trying to spend 3 months in each country. So I spent 3 months in Morocco, I spent 3 months cycling through Spain, I spent 3 months in France, then I spent 3 months in Turkey, and now I'm nearly into my 3rd month in Nepal on a very, very small budget. You know what I mean? I'm getting to see the whole world, beautiful places, meeting nice people, having everything I need, all the tobacco I can smoke, great food, adequate accommodation, beautiful nature, no stress, you know, every opportunity to do exercise and meditate and read and do all positive things. You know, I've gotten to this place in just over a year from where I was, kind of 13, 14 months from being obliterated with nothing going on, and just taking that first step to make a big change. And, you know, people say, oh, I don't have the money or the time, or I don't know how to, you know, camp or survive outside or do anything like that. It was like, I didn't really either, but I've learned a lot about it. And that if you're not spending money on accommodation and expensive food and electricity and a car and all Netflix and all these things, you know, that eat up money, you know, people are making €1,000 a week back where I'm from, and they have no money left at the end of every month, you know, whether it's mortgages and all that. And you know, if you're willing to do it, you can see the whole world and have a nice time doing it on a couple of €100 a week. You know, and I'm not even spending a couple of €100 a week at the moment. I'm spending about just over 100 a week, and that's my accommodation, all my food, everything included in that, you know. So if you're willing to if you're willing to try and seek out where is cheap, you know, you just got to go and camp out somewhere until you have enough to pay for a flight and a visa, and then you can fly to that country and then live there and actually save nearly 50% of €200. You can save €100 a week in places like this for 3 months. You know, that's a few grand. That's enough to fly and get a visa to any country in the world, and then you find a way to live cheap there, you know, and you're experiencing different cultures, different types of people, and but first and foremost is your own perception and your own mental health, and that you generally tend to meet the same sort of personality types in every country in the world. You know, you've got the overly enthusiastic, you know, possibly a scammer type of a person approaching you, and all the rest of types of people, you know, and you just have to learn, be stronger in yourself in dealing with whoever and whatever your triggers for psychosis are and all that, you know. And a lot of the time it's media, being stuck on YouTube or watching the news, or, you know, just feeding the mind with confirmation bias about what's wrong with the world, and therefore, you know, your feeling of helplessness about doing anything about it, for example. with all the injustice and corruption and everything that's it. But you'll see that that's everywhere. You know, it's underreported in most places, but it's the same thing. It's the same system, corrupt system everywhere. You know, so, but the same good people, generous people, kind people, they're also everywhere. Compassionate people. And yeah, so that's life is the same all over the world. People are more or less the same everywhere. Nature is different, and that's what I find the most beautiful, is different types of nature. You know, so I've gone from the desert to the Himalayas in a year, with multiple places in between that I hadn't seen before, and let that seep into my being. You know, survival mode, like attuning to nature, working with nature, knowing when there's rain coming and going to find shelter before the rain starts, making sure you have enough water and food if you're going out into the forest or up a mountain for a couple of days. You know, you got to get your power bank charged. You got to have internet data on your phone to keep in contact and listen to your music and do whatever. You got to have firewood if you're going to light a fire. You know, and it's illegal to do that in certain places, so you got to make sure you're not going to be caught by police or forest rangers or anything like that. But when you do it all right, like Marco Pierre White, the great chef, says, perfection is a lot of little things done perfectly, or done well, sorry. So if you do a lot of little things well, you end up with perfection. And yeah. Yeah, and nature is perfect. You know, it's impersonal. You know, if you go out into nature, you don't work with it. If your survival mode is not engaged and you don't have clarity, nature will kill you. You know, it will fuck you up. It will drown you, freeze you, roast you. Animals will tear you apart. Mosquitoes will drive you insane. All these things, you know what I mean? It doesn't care. So if you don't have your real, actual survival mode fueled by clarity intact, you know, you're not going to enjoy nature. People are afraid of it for good reason, but it's not that difficult to survive. You know, obviously if you're talking about a jungle in the Congo or something like that, that's a different ball game, you know, from what I've been doing. But who knows? Who knows where we'll end up? Like at the moment, I'm in leopard territory. You know, there's common leopard sightings and attacks on animals and stuff in this little village. You know, so I'm constantly, although I have a locked door and I've got a fire here and everything, you know, there's always a chance that a leopard could pop around the corner, and so I'm always prepared here with my little bit of hot water to throw at its face if it comes near me, you know, if it doesn't come silently from behind me. But you know, I'm not operating out of fear. Because it's real, you know, and you have to take the little measures and train yourself, condition yourself to just be aware as you can. Do you know? And if you're as aware as you can and you do your best and put all the appropriate measures in place and nature still gets one over on you, well then that's just nature. You know, it's not your fault because you've done your best, it's just nature. Nature is bigger than us. You know what I mean? We forget that, and we're completely isolated from that in towns and cities, doing 9 to 5 and all the rest of it, where most people who suffer from psychosis are, you know. And yeah, they go into an even more unnatural hospital or whatever on unnatural substances, and you know, once you nature really is the best medicine for recalibrating the body and mind, you know, getting the mind back into the body, you know, because if your mind and body are not sort of moving as a unit in nature, you're going to have issues. You know, you want to get up that hill, your brain is saying you can get up that hill, but your body is like, no, you can't, you're not getting up that hill. So what are you going to do? You know, you got to bring your mind back into your body wherever you are, halfway up the hill, and be like, okay, I got to stay here for the night. Do I have everything I need? Did I prepare for possibly not being able to make it up that hill? And all that. Yeah, so... And plus there's the whole exercise, oxygenating the blood and everything side of being out there. Whether it's walking or running or climbing rocks or cycling, whatever it is. Swimming at the beach, running on the beach. Grounding, getting the shoes off on actual ground. You know, wet sand, forest floor, whatever. You know, like there's so many factors. There's so much unnatural things in towns and cities and houses and everything that contributes to psychotic symptoms. There might be nothing wrong with your mental health or your brain at all, but you'll just feel like shit for years because your feet never touch the ground. You know, outside your house. You'd never walk in the grass barefoot, or once in a while. You're supposed to do it for hours a day. You're not supposed to be in rubber-soled shoes separated from the environment, looking at a screen for hours and hours, and then sleeping in a room with the window closed with no natural light, artificial lights. All these so many factors can contribute to psychosis. And nature, getting in touch with nature, is like the best way of reducing mitigating factors in that. So no, maybe you just have a psychotic type brain, maybe it's schizophrenia, maybe it's schizoaffective disorder, whatever the label is on it. But like, how many factors contributing to the symptoms have you removed from your life? I'm trying to think of the word, not trial by error. It's when you, hold on, I'm going to pause this now until I think of it. Process of elimination. Have you gone through a process of elimination? I know, being in psychosis, the process of elimination, if you do engage with that mentally, it never really actually achieves, there's nothing satisfactory of being in that fear state and thinking, oh, it has to be this, or this has to be the ultimate answer, and and it just keeps, the mind will just keep churning stuff up, imaginary stuff that either lines up with your emotional state and the external world, or it doesn't, and causes alignments and then misalignments and over again, and you might think you arrive at the perfect answer and then it's gone and all this kind of thing. But so a process of elimination, getting rid of as many things that could be contributing to you not feeling well as possible, and hopefully, if you're going through psychosis, or someone is going a bit squirrely and starting to act strange and is smoking loads of weed and stuff like that, and you've got a car, or you've got, the power or the friendship or familial ship with them, that you can say, okay, we're going camping on the beach for 3 nights. And they might be like, what, the camping on the beach? There's flies and jellyfish and we'd be cold. And, there might be all sorts of resistance to it and stuff like that. But it's the best medicine when you can eliminate these factors. And it's just, it's as simple as, is this thing natural? And I'm not talking about continuing on with your 9-to-5 life as normal, feeling terrible, but then switching over, spending an extra €100 a week because on food that says organic, but you're buying it in basically a factory full of artificial lights, and the food is from all over the world. You know what I mean? It just has an organic label on it. That's not what I'm talking about, natural. I'm talking about going out and exposing yourself to the forces of nature that can kill you, and learning how to manage that. And I'm not saying you have to be out there without comforts. You can have your phone, your connectivity, you can have a nice sleeping bag, a nice tent, whatever you want. Preferably go somewhere that you don't need a tent. so the light can actually wake you up in the mornings, you know. And you can hear the bats chirping at night and the birds singing in the evening and the morning, and you like hear some rustling in the trees while you're trying to go to sleep, and you're wondering what the fuck is that. Then you have to get on Google and figure out what kind of animals are lurking around in that area where you are. That's the beauty of the internet. Ask the internet and they'll say, oh well, there's no tigers or jaguars, or you know, snakes aren't nocturnal in this area or whatever. So that rustling around out there, it's most likely a deer or something like that that isn't going to harm me. Or it could be a family of wild pigs, you know, so maybe I'm not in the best spot here, so I'm going to have to, unfortunately I was just drifting off to sleep, but I'm going to have to pack everything up and you know, go and find a little spot that a family of pigs aren't going to be able to tear up if they're feeling hungry or curious or aggressive towards me for being in their spot, you know, because you're in their spot and you got to be respectful of being out there. Because like I was saying, nature will fuck you up if you don't respect it. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it on that. Process of elimination. Is it natural? Is it not? Where are you in your belief system about yourself that you can survive with all the gear? You know, say you have all the gear that you need, water filters, water, everything, you know. You got your everything tucked into your rucksack or onto your bike, and you've got a strong pair of legs and some free time and enough money. Where are you in your belief system about yourself that you could pull that off for a week or 2 weeks? That you could, if you're from America, can you go out to a forested area or cycle up and down the coast? And do you feel like you could rely on yourself to not get into any serious danger? Yeah. So, and you know, that's what humans are supposed to be able to do. We evolved that way. You know, the reason that we're alive here now is because all our ancestors, up until very recently, they all survived that way. For a long, long time, they were nomadic. There were many more dangerous wild animals than there are now, and all the rest of it. There was less knowledge, technically, about, you know, food was being gathered. It wasn't being bought in a shop. You know, and I'm not saying that you have to go out there and catch fish or forage mushrooms or herbs or any of that. Bring your food, you know, use the conveniences and ease your way into it. Where are you in your life that you think you'd be able to, you know, most people can't even imagine leaving their, with psychosis anyway, you know, leaving their bedroom or leaving the bed in the hospital ward. You know, it's like, you know, hang on to the sanity. The sanity is nature. Do you know, it's like that little seed of sanity. It's there. You know, nature wants to water that for you, but you just like, you know, it's just we've tucked ourselves away so far from nature being able to water that seed in us. Like the only way is to go into nature and allow it to top us up, allow us to the seed to sprout and grow, and then it's up to us to continually nourish that and water that and allow it grow and get plenty of sun and all the rest of it. So yeah, there you go. 1 year in my case, got off antipsychotics after many years of dealing with it, and a year later I'm speaking the way I'm speaking now, and yeah, I can't really complain. I'll go into, yeah, like I said, feedback, and I can go into more details on any aspects. Thank you. Be well, be happy, and hang on to the truth.